is not paying compensation. And I think most people remember that it is the mothers of Russia who made Russia withdraw from Afghanistan in 1984, when they took high casualties. So I think the undercurrent in Moscow at the moment is very much going against the Kremlin and against Putin. And hopefully that will actually be a positive move and help to get the Russians to the negotiation table rather sooner rather than later. But at the moment, that is not something that we're seeing, on the world stage, as it were.
And do you see this incident as a retaliation from Western intelligence or even Ukrainian intelligence? Because last year, Russia's Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, head of chemical and biological forces, has been eliminated with a scooter, killed with a bomb. He has been eliminated with this bomb detonated in this electronic scooter. Don't you think that also Vladimir Putin and his inner circle should be afraid of their own lives, as Ukraine also conducting this assassination campaign inside Russia?
Well, I think that's a very important link. That assassination was very unexpected, and I think that really rattled the hierarchy in the Kremlin and Putin in particular. And they've certainly, after that event, upped their security. But even having done that, the limousine was blown up as well. And we also know, in the last sort of week or so, Ukraine has had some very successful strikes deep into Russia. The attack on the Engels Air Force Base, destroying 96 cruise missiles, was a very significant operation. So this is a multifaceted war at the moment, and bringing it home to Moscow, I think, from a military and security intelligence perspective, is the right thing to do, because actually it's Trump sitting behind his armored-plated walls in the Kremlin. He needs to understand what is happening on the ground, and he needs, if President Trump is not going to drag him to the negotiation table, then maybe actions by Ukraine intelligence and allied intelligence will do that job as well, or better.
Also, according to The Sun, as you just mentioned, Vladimir Putin's own security officials have been checked after this incident with limousine near the FSB headquarters. Does it mean that Vladimir Putin is also afraid of his own security guard, of his own people?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Putin appears very paranoid at the moment. There are lots of rumors that he has, what we call doppelgangers, lookalikes, to confuse anybody who might be trying to get hold of him. But when you can't trust your own personal bodyguards, that really suggests you're in a very difficult situation. Certainly, when I wrote about this in the Telegraph this week, I likened it to the Roman Forum and Brutus murdering Julius Caesar. The analogy being that Caesar would be Putin and Brutus would be some of his close associates. So, these evil tyrants are susceptible. When you do such horrific things, you are going to create enemies. And no doubt Putin has enemies close to him, and they're closing in. And he is getting incredibly worried, which is why one is seeing the actions that we've seen, particularly with his own bodyguards.
US President Donald Trump is angry with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin because Russia was delaying ceasefire talks. Could this become another turning point in Trump's stance on Vladimir Putin, in Trump's policy on Russia? Could this be the tipping point after which Trump will turn against Vladimir Putin?
Well, let's hope so. Trump used some very undiplomatic language, saying how cross he was with Putin. I think President Trump thinks that he can change every situation by doing some sort of business deal, and he's finding that actually doing business in warfare is rather different from doing business selling houses and tower blocks. And Putin is not playing ball. You know, Trump's told him to do something, and Putin's doing exactly the opposite. Putin shows no indication at all of wanting ceasefire or peace. Putin sort of seems to think he's winning at the moment, and some of Trump's actions have made him think that. When Trump turned off the intelligence support to Ukraine and then turned off US weapons for a few weeks, that really had a profound effect, not just on the battlefield, but also led Trump to believe that actually the American president and some of his close advisors were rather closer to the Kremlin than they were to Kyiv or to London and European headquarters. Now, thankfully, Trump seems to have realized the mistakes he's been making and now putting pressure on Putin. We hear all the time about tariffs at the moment, and Trump seems to be focused on that rather than anything else. But one thing Trump did say is that if Putin didn't come to the peace negotiation table, then US or president would prevent Russian oil being sold on the world markets, which he probably can do. And if Russia can't sell its oil and gas, then it won't get its money for weapons, and that could have a really serious impact. So, with Trump putting tariffs on virtually everybody, including penguins in the Antarctic, let's hope that he will put tariffs on Russia, particularly its oil, so that it can't be sold, and Putin will run out of money more quickly than he is at the moment.
From your perspective, would it be enough to force Putin to agree with ceasefire deal? I mean, this secondary tariffs and sanctions, even tariffs against countries which are buying Russian oil?
Well, I don't think on its own it would do that, but it would certainly put more pressure on. And it's clear that there is a lot of pressure sort of coming on to the Kremlin at the moment. Although one must sort of consider that Putin still thinks he's winning. Putin knows that if he loses or doesn't achieve his aims, and his aims were the complete subjugation of the 4 oblasts that Russia controls part of at the moment, and Crimea. He also wants to decouple Europe from the US. If he doesn't achieve those, he's failed. And failed Russian dictators don't last very long. And I think Putin is well aware of that. So I think Putin is assuming he might as well fight on, because if he doesn't achieve what he's set out to do, then that's the end of him. Not only as the president, but probably the end of his life, because that's what Russians do to their failed leaders. They get rid of them completely.
And also, however, Russia has agreed to a partial ceasefire in the air and at sea. Don't you think that this is special Russia's negotiating tactics, just to give Donald Trump something to declare any kind of a victory, but not enough to actually end the war? Do you see this as Russia's negotiating tactic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 2 ceasefires we've seen before, the 30-day ceasefire, the ink wasn't even dry on the agreement before Russia broke it. The partial ceasefire in the Black Sea really only benefited Russia, and they didn't agree to it. And at the moment, there is supposed to be an agreement that Russia and Ukraine will not attack energy infrastructure, but only overnight, last night, Russia attacked Ukraine infrastructure. So whatever comes out of Putin's mouth and his negotiators at the moment really means virtually nothing, because the Kremlin and Putin are just carrying on fighting and have made absolutely no concessions at all. So, yeah, it's Putin talks positive stuff for the media, but does absolutely nothing in the way of stopping the fighting or moving towards a ceasefire. And hopefully now President Trump is clever enough to realize that